Hello, fans, and welcome back to Stop the Clock. We are on episode 8, I believe. I think we're
Yeah,
on 8.
9. I don't know.
8, whatever. We have officially reached Championship Sunday. I think
Oh my
second
God.
biggest Sunday to Super Bowl Sunday.
What are you
And
talking about? The Pro Bowl. Come on now.
Pro Bowl is awful. We know the Pro Bowl is awful. Anyway, continuing with, we have the Championship Sunday. It's going to be hard to top what happened last week. I mean, we had 4 exceptional games. I mean, from top to bottom, from the Bengals to Tennessee to our Sunday night game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be hard to top that. But we do have 2 great games. We have on the NFC, we have the Bengals heading to Arrowhead and taking on the Chiefs. And then on the NFC side, we have a third time the Rams versus the 49ers. Sam, why don't you kick us off with the AFC?
Yeah, I just want to say overall, I mean, the football gods kind of gave us a little gift because they kind of gave us a shitty wild card weekend. Like, it was just not a lot good games going on in that one. And then they're like, here you go. One of the best divisional weekends in recent memory, for sure. I think all of the games ended on the last play, which is incredible. So yeah, let's start in the AFC. That's the first matchup. I want to talk about the Bengals because all of America right now is putting their hopes and dreams on the shoulders of Joe Burrow because we don't want to see Patrick Mahomes' family in the Super Bowl. Nothing against Patrick Mahomes, to be honest.
His family's crazy.
His family's no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's talk about Joey B. I mean, in the divisional game, he didn't throw any touchdowns. He did have 1 pick, but he did throw for 348 yards, made some key throws. He was able to get them in field goal range at the end. And then Hall of Famer Evan McPherson was able to put it through to win the game. Now, I obviously, Joe Burrow's that guy. He's proven that. But going into Arrowhead, I'm a little concerned because of the pass rush. The reason I picked the Titans, and I said this earlier, to win this game was because of their defensive line and the Bengals just being awful up front. And it was there. I mean, they had 9 sacks, which is unheard of, but it didn't faze Joe Burrow. I don't know how much of that is going to continue because we know Kansas City can rush the passer as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it perfectly, especially with the Bengals offensive line. You have a Bengals offensive line that we've known coming into the season was suspect. Like, we knew it was coming to suspect. Yeah. We didn't think that the Bengals were going to be this good, so it wouldn't be as costly. But now we see at the AFC Championship game where it's like, okay, you got guys like Chris Jones. You know, you got guys on that Kansas City front that can rush the passer. You know, you got guys like Melvin Ingram too. And the Bengals just allowed 9 sacks. And if the Bengals want any chance in this game, they cannot afford to take 9 sacks because – unlike Tennessee's offense, the Chiefs' offense, any time in the game can score 30 points. Any time in the game, they can score 30 points if they want to. And so I think looking at this, if you're the Bengals, you got to start off with quick, short, easy passes. You can't expect to go Jamar deep every play because you just won't have time to do that.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Bengals is what the Chiefs were a few years ago. Like, we've seen the evolution of the Chiefs' offense where it's like, Patrick Mahomes in the MVP season, they were just launching it down the field, all these big plays. And then that's when their sort of slump happened this year is they kept trying to do that. There were a lot of picks for Mahomes, and they've had to kind of re-evolve. Patrick Mahomes has gotten a lot better at seeing the field, and as teams are making them drive the distance, that's what they're doing, and they're still getting production out of it. Whereas the Bengals, in the phase that they're in right now, it's just deep. And it's worked so far, but we'll see how far it can work. Obviously, we don't trust the offensive line. I do trust Joe Burrow. A lot of people are saying, like, oh, you're going to Arrowhead. It's the loudest stadium in the NFL. I don't think that phases Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow played at LSU and the SEC. Those are some of the on-record players have said the SEC environments have been harder to play in than pretty much all the NFL environments. So I don't think the noise will be that much of an issue for the Bengals. And then, I mean, they play good defense. It's just, I don't know. The Chiefs went up against the number 1 defense in the Bills, which Jude and I were talking was kind of inflated. They played no one good besides the Chiefs in the past, at least for passing defenses wise. And they got torched in those 2 games. So it was definitely,
it's such a tricky game to pick because you have 2 teams that can really go vertical. I mean, like you've talked about the Chiefs, you got guys like Hill and Kelsey. But if you look at the last game that they played when they played in, Paul Brown Stadium, Kelsey and Hill didn't do much. I mean, they had a combined total of 9 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. They weren't, active, but yet the Chiefs still put up 31 points. And that's what scares me for the Bengals. It's like, man, Kelsey and Hill didn't do anything, but they scored 31 points, and it came down to a 4th and goal stop. So
yeah, I mean,
so
what I'm also concerned about, because a lot of people can say like, oh, they won their earlier matchup, and it wasn't like a matchup where like, oh, it was week 3 that they beat them, where like the teams are completely different now. They beat them only a month ago. But what I'm concerned about is that they did beat them. I think that's almost a hindrance, because now you're going in saying, okay, it worked. Whereas if you're on the losing side, you're like, okay, these are the adjustments that we need to make and we're going to make. And the majority of that offense for the Bengals was through Jamar Chase. He had, it was like 11 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns,
like
something like that. Career day in his young, bright NFL career. And a lot of those were really deep plays. He had that one catch and run and one really deep one. You'd best believe they're double covering him this game. So I think Joe Burrow is going to have to rely on some of the more undervalued threats in the Cincinnati offense, say like a Tyler Boyd or a CJ Uzomah. Of course, we know what T. Higgins can do as well. So
I think we get a T. Higgins legacy game. I mean, if Gabriel Davis can do it, why can't T. Higgins do it? Honestly, you know what? Maybe 4 touchdowns from T. Higgins is the way.
Maybe. I mean, they're going to definitely need 4 touchdowns if they're going to want to beat the Chiefs. Yeah. God, it's as an NFL fan, we're at 2 spectrums right now, just to sort of get away from the seriousness of the game. Everyone wants Joe Burrow to win, but we also wouldn't mind seeing Eli Apple get burnt a couple times or like ran over or something, just because. Yeah. But
no, I'm my heart tells me take the Bengals. My mind tells me take the Chiefs. But I'm going with my heart. I think I got to go with the Bengals. I mean, why not have – and it's going to pain me, because if Joe Burrow wins a Super Bowl before Dak Prescott, that's going to be very painful to watch. And it's going to be talked about for the next 15 years, because sadly Dak might not win a Super Bowl, but it's going to be tough if he wins a Super Bowl, especially with the offensive line.
He might if they get a certain coach that just became available, but we'll talk about that later.
But
you said it spot on. My head says the Bengals, or excuse me, my head says the Chiefs. My heart wants to pick the Bengals, but I'm picking the Chiefs. I'm sorry. It's just, I know they're coming off an emotional win and Joe Burrow's a sneaky good team to play. It's just, I don't think you can overcome 9 sacks twice. Jeffrey Simmons last week blew that game up, and Chris Jones has been doing it for a lot longer. So I think because of that, I think the fact that they weren't able to get their run game going in the first half against Tennessee, it didn't hurt them in that game because Tennessee couldn't put up points, but we know the Chiefs can. So I think that comes back to bite them. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. I just think they're too explosive. I mean, in the earlier, you mentioned how like Kelsey and Hill didn't do much in the earlier game that they played. The same thing was kind of being said in the Chiefs-Bills game way earlier in the season before they played. Kelsey and Hill didn't do much, and we all saw what they did last Sunday. So I'm going to take the Chiefs at this one. They will advance to their 3rd straight Super Bowl.
Moving on, we have a 3rd game, like I mentioned, of the NFC West between the Rams versus 49ers, which I don't think I would be saying would be our NFC Championship game, especially with the way the Rams kind of finished the season and how the 49ers are kind of like, that hot team coming to the playoffs, but you didn't expect them to go beat Dallas and then go beat Green Bay. So, you didn't expect that, but they did it. And many are saying maybe the 2007 Giants they're getting from this team. But I think you first have to look is who's going to be in the crowd, right? Is it going to be another 49ers home game? My prediction is I think it will. I think maybe not as big as it was in the Week 18 game, but I think it's going to be, I'd say 65-45, if the math, no, 65-35, 49ers.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Rams definitely tried to do some petty things to kind of lessen the fans, but it's just, it's kind of the lay of the market. I mean, the Rams were not there for a long period of time. The Chargers just moved there. So, like, a lot of the LA fan base, there was some for the Rams. There was a lot of Raiders fans here in LA, and the Niners faithful. They travel well, but they also have a huge fan base in Los Angeles. It showed. I think it's going to show again. The tickets are very expensive, but definitely going to be seeing a lot of red in that stadium. But I think the Rams are going to be prepared for it this time. I mean, they definitely were not in Week 18. I think they have to come to that realization that, hey, the Niners just might have better fans, simple as that. And they're going to travel. And it's so hard to beat a team 3 times.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short. I think the Rams, like you said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. The 49ers obviously swept them in the regular season. Debo's fantastic. George Kittle's fantastic. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the guy. And we've looked at him in these past 2 games where it's been like, Jimmy Garoppolo's done enough. I don't think he does enough in this game to win the football game. And so that's why I think I simply take the Rams. You take the first half of what the Rams did against Tampa Bay, and you just have them play the full game like that. I think it's going to be a long day.
And the same could be said about the game that they played in Week 18. Like, the Rams were up 17-3 at halftime. They played a very good first half. Matt Stafford, I think, had 1 incompletion in that game. But it's kind of poetic. It would have to come full circle that the Rams finally have to get over this hump, this 7 or 8 game losing streak to the 49ers. Sean McVay has never beaten Kyle Shanahan, which is kind of crazy. 2 very good young head coaches. But for me, it's going to come down to Matthew Stafford. Simple as that. They went out and traded. They said, F them picks, if you will. And they went and got him. And it did show. While there was some turnover problems, none of them were really Matt Stafford's fault in that in the game that allowed Tampa Bay to come back in that. But, hey, 36 seconds left on the clock. Jude's like, hey, let's kneel it out. I'm like, nah. Let's see what we got. We paid a lot. We paid good value to go get this. Granted, I don't know what the Bucs were doing, sending a 0 blitz. I mean, real men use engaged 8, but it definitely did not work there because Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford made him pay. Game-winning field goal. We know how that went. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Jimmy G does enough in this game. Playoff Von Miller has been activated. He got that, like, I think he had the highest. I mean, I don't like using PFF that much, but like he had the highest graded pass rush grade in the playoffs so far.
To a certain extent for PFF, I think for a certain extent you can use PFF. Don't look at the corner PFF, but every other position. I think
of course. I mean, I'll look at the 1,000 yards, but not the point. We're talking about playoff teams here.
So who's your pick then?
I'm gonna take the Rams. I agree. It's very hard to beat a team 3 times. The way I look at this, it's like the Rams are the Bucs and the 49ers are the Saints. The 49ers have just given the Rams the business in the regular season. It's happened with the Saints the last 2 years. It's happened with the 49ers the last 3. But then come playoff time, Brady got it done. I think Stafford gets it done in this one. OBJ's been hot. I don't think there's any way to contain Cooper Kupp as well. I mean, the reason Devontae kind of didn't do much, especially in that second half against Green Bay, is it was really cold. The snow started to come down. You're in a dome in 70-degree weather, so you're going to be just fine throwing the football. And I'd like to see the Rams get maybe Cam Akers' confidence back a little bit. We know they can run it with Michelle, but we also know how special Cam Akers can be. He had those 2 fumbles, but I'd like to see him maybe, if they get down to the goal line, get him in the end zone, get some of that confidence back. But I like the Rams for sure.
Yeah, I like the Rams for sure. And to keep us up to date with kind of our picks, I think we tied last week with our picks. So this is a big weekend. Actually. I mean, this is a big weekend. It's definitely going to come down to, once again, one game between the Bengals and Chiefs.
And keep in mind, I want to lose this week because I don't know. I kind of want to see Cincinnati win. Chiefs have been there way too many.
Anyway, carrying on, I think we have our picks, and we've talked about championship weekend, but now we have a few interesting storylines. And I think we'll start with the coaches and just run through them real quick because I don't think there's too much until they really get their team, they get their draft together, and they really get their staff together. But let's start with, I think, your very own new head coach for the Denver Broncos. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
This is who I wanted, straight up. It came down to, I think it was Nathaniel Hackett, Dan Quinn, who I'm happy for you guys. He's much better as a coordinator. I've said this before. I think so have you. Great that Dallas retained him. I did not want him as a head coach. And then Kevin O'Connell for the Rams, who I would have been fine with. But I love the pick. I love the pickup, not just because of course, everyone's going to say the ties to Aaron Rodgers, which we'll get to for sure. But I like his energy. It's like the complete opposite of Vic Fangio. Denver's also needed to hire an offensive coach forever, pretty much. I mean, after Gary Kubiak resigned because of health issues, they hired Vance Joseph over Kyle Shanahan, which was always questionable. And then they went out and got Vic Fangio, which just wasn't the right fit. So I think this brings a lot of good energy. I mean, his introductory press conference, it was contagious. And especially with a young team like this, I think that's definitely going to benefit also getting an offensive mind. And hey, there's a certain quarterback that wears 12 that is in love with this guy and might be looking for a new team. So maybe there's the added benefit of that.
Yeah, I think you said it best at the end with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Obviously, he's likely to leave. Maybe there's a new spot in Tampa, but
I was just thinking about that.
I think obviously the Broncos are probably the top destination if you're Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like you mentioned, they got a very young core. Their receiving core is very good. Now, depending, maybe they might have to give up a young guy like Jerry Jeudy if they want that to work.
Hey, if we give up Jerry Jeudy, which I don't want to do, it's okay. We'll get Devontae.
Get Aaron Rodgers.
But
like you said, I think this signing, you could look at it from saying, oh, they just want to sign him to bring Aaron Rodgers, but this dude's a smart guy. Green Bay's been always a top offense, since he's been there. So they've been productive.
He's also his history is pretty interesting too. I mean, when Jacksonville went to the AFC Championship game, he was the offensive coordinator there. Yeah. They had a good offense with a young Leonard Fournette, passing resemblance to Javonte Williams, and then even back to his collegiate days working at Syracuse.
Okay, but we're not going to act like that Jaguars team was not.
No, of course,
heavily carried by the defense.
But he made Blake Bortles look like a good starting quarterback. And no, you can't even tell me that Blake Bortles was not a good quarterback.
That made him look like a good starting quarterback. I could say
he was. That year it was his best career year by far.
Yeah, but was he really that good? I mean, like I said, the defense that year for the Jaguars significantly carried.
I mean, when he was over at Syracuse coaching the Orange, Ryan Nassib was the quarterback, and he broke pretty much all the school records that year when he was with them. So it's fine. That's why they got him.
He won't have to develop a quarterback. Hopefully, maybe he'll have Aaron Rodgers coming.
I hope.
A few of the other coaching hirings, and we can run through these pretty quick. Obviously, you have the Giants getting Dable, which is big. I mean, once again, with the Giants now, it's like, they hired Joe Judge 2 years ago, and it's like, okay, interesting hire. What are they going to do? It's another, white coach, should be, maybe an African-American. And then this year they had the opportunity to hire Brian Flores, and honestly, I think they should have hired Brian Flores. And yes, you could say, they need an offensive mind there, but I just think they need a whole culture change. I think the Giants right now, they are in a complete disaster. It's from top to bottom. It's not even just with the roster. You got issues with what are you going to do with Daniel Jones? What are you going to do with Saquon Barkley? But then when you got front office issues, you got just culture issues. There's not really an identity that you think of when you think of the Giants besides bad. I don't know how else to say.
Yeah. No, I think what was appealing to him was obviously what he was able to do with Josh Allen. Granted, that was with 3 years with Josh as a rookie quarterback. Daniel Jones has already been through a lot, which might be a benefit to him, and I'm not going to say that he can't do it. And I think what also appealed to him was just the way he uses offense. You look at a guy like Isaiah McKenzie, who they love to use with all those gadget plays, reminds me a lot of Kadarius Toney. I think there could be some fun stuff there for the Giants, but I think you said it perfectly. They need a culture change. I don't know if Ryan Dable brings that. And we all know that Brian Flores definitely does because of what he was able to do in Miami. Back-to-back 10-win seasons with them. I don't really know why Miami left them. And there was also the added connection that Deshaun Watson is very tight with Brian Flores, and they might want to link up somewhere. Of course, pending all of Deshaun Watson's legal stuff. I think it was an okay hire. I just think Brian Flores would have been a better choice. So.
Yeah. I like I said, I think you need a whole culture change. And Brian Dable, yeah, he might help the offense average more, maybe 3 more points, but I think we said it best with the culture. I think there's a lot more issues than just the football roster that the Giants have. And the last guy I want to talk about, Matt Eberflus, I think is how you say his name. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. Obviously, the Indianapolis defensive coordinator going over to the Bears, which people first looked at as like, okay, why you gained a defensive guy when you just drafted Justin Fields? You don't have a first-round pick this year. You need someone who could develop Fields. But I've kind of looked more at this pick, and I've said this is actually more of an interesting, pickup than you might look at from the surface. Obviously, yes, he's a defensive guy, so he's going to know more defensive stuff than how to really develop a young quarterback. But there's still an offense coordinator that he can get. And I think that's kind of the big question is who is he going to hire, because that's who they need. And I know there's the Packers QB and
Luke Getsy,
coordinator is who's kind of the top interest. And I think that'd be perfect because, this whole idea with the Bears is like, if the Bears want to go anywhere, Fields has to take this huge step. That is what every Bears fan is expecting. They say, okay, for us to be really good, Fields is going to have to be amazing. And so I think you need a guy who can really develop him. And so I think, yeah, okay, maybe this defensive coordinator might not be able to do that, but you still have a whole other staff that can do that. And then Matt Eberflus as a defense coordinator has been amazing. I mean, in his past 4 seasons, Frankie Reich, their defense in 3 seasons have been top 10 in defense. And this year they were 9th in total defense, in points per game, which was only 21.3. So it's a good pickup, but obviously, like I mentioned, the offensive coordinator is probably going to be the most important thing they're going to need.
I agree. I thought Luke Getsy was definitely the man for that job. I mean, just all his work with Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. But as you said, yeah, that Indianapolis defense is fun. I would like to see what happens really with Roquan Smith, because we all know what he was able to do for Darius Leonard and the productive player that he's been. Roquan Smith is a rising star. I definitely would look to see him take a really big jump next year. But I agree. If this dude can shift the culture, which I think he can in Chicago, I think it's a great hire, because you don't always need to go with a defensive coach if you're in need of, or an offensive coach if you're in need of offense. If it's the right guy, that's a defensive minded guy, go for it, whatever. But like you said, you need to get spot on with the right offensive mind. And now, speaking of offensive minds, one of the greatest this game has seen has stepped down as the New Orleans Saints.
Well, let's be clear. So we're recording at about 7:00 tonight, and a lot has happened this Saturday, because it started with the.
I'm talking about Sean Payton. But...
Oh, okay. Yes, carry on. Yeah, Sean Payton. Yeah.
Oh, is this
Sean
close
Payton.
to saying his name?
Yeah. No, Sean Payton stepped down. That's exactly what I was talking about. Saturday was just a fantastic day for Sean Payton.
Of course. Okay. No, I was just saying, yeah, because we were on the topic of coaches. Sean Payton stepped down, and now the Saints are a little bit behind on the coaching search. A lot of people think they're going to hire Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator, who's done a fine job there. I think that's probably the right move, is to stay in-house, just because the culture that the Saints have. We're talking a lot about culture and teams. I mean, talk about a team.
That's what's important with a head
Absolutely.
coach. Head coach, and I think that's what you look at when you look at a head coach. It's like, that's why when I looked at Kellen Moore, it was like, I don't know why he's such a top head coach candidate, because, well, one, he can't carry the Cowboys offense for anything, so shame on him for that. But then the second thing is, dude, I mean, that was his first, real coaching gig, and you don't expect him to come in and change the culture. And as a head coach, you look at a guy like Dave Campbell in Detroit, it's like, man, you can feel the culture change that has happened in Detroit. And so, here, like you mentioned with Sean Payton, keep it in-house, and they're going through a rebuild. If I was a coach, that's not a place I would look at and be like, yeah, I want to go there.
I mean, but at the same time, Ryan Dable went to the Giants, so it's like, what are you going to do? But I think absolutely. I mean, the reason why the Saints, despite maybe not being as good, because if you look at their roster this year, it wasn't an outstanding roster. It wasn't great, but they have a good culture. They know how to win in New Orleans, and that's why they're always relevant, and that's why they were relevant pretty much until the last week or last couple of weeks. I mean, they had a shot in the playoffs in week 18, which is all you can really ask for. So, I mean, I like them hiring, no decisions have been made. They're still interviewing outside candidates, but Dennis Allen is supposed to be the candidate that's supposed to get the job.
Yeah.
Speaking of the NFC South, I'll let you go.
Finally, to our last topic, because I feel like this is the perfect way to end it and perfect way to close it. And, obviously everything is still speculation. So there's nothing, up in the air. And like I mentioned, we're recording later in Saturday night. And Saturday's kind of been a crazy day, because it started with the rumors of Tom Brady's leaning towards retirement, and then Tom Brady's retiring, and then
he hasn't made a decision. Yeah.
He hasn't made a decision yet. But regardless, I think it's over. I think Tom Brady is going to retire when it's all said and done. I don't think he will play next season. And mainly, and I think the main reason why is because this Tampa Bay team's not going to get any better, right? I don't think this Tampa Bay team's going to get any better. I know they're very young on defense, and they're very good. Chris Godwin, if I'm him, I'm leaving. He wants the bag. He wants to go get money. Chicago could be a destination. But if Tom Brady, you're not going to play with a better team than you had the past 2 years. And then also 7 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, 15 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro first teams, 5 Super Bowl MVPs. I mean, can he do any more? I mean,
no, he's done it all. But the other thing is, we all know that he can keep playing. He literally came off of an MVP caliber season this year. So there's no question as to can he play. It's just like, does he want to play with his family? Obviously all those things come into play. And not only does this mean that Brady's retiring, it also means Gronk is probably done as well. So it's the end of an era. It's as simple as that. I mean, all those accolades and accomplishments that you just listed, it's just,
it's going to feel seasons. It's unbelievable for a football player who came into the combine with probably the body shape of a 10th grade
like a lemon
boy, and
yeah.
to go and become the greatest quarterback in NFL history. And, you could say the Montanas, but I mean, I think Brady was better than Montana.
I think Manning was better than Montana, but
I just think it's an unbelievable career. I think, you mentioned that he lost, and it might be sour for a bit that he lost and went out that way, but that they fought to the end. But and I think the last thing to finish off, Brian Leftwich will probably leave. If Brian Leftwich gets a job, he's gonna leave, and I think Brian Leftwich has a good chance of getting a job, whether that be with the Texans, Jaguars, or another team that's still looking, for a head coach. So I just think he should retire. I think he does. I think he's 44. At this point, hang out with your family. There's not much more else to say on this.
I know, but part of me wants him to say, let's run it back 1 year. Let's tag Godwin. Let's re-sign Leonard Fournette. Like, let's keep the band just together for one more year. For one more year, and Brady will get his farewell tour.
But he mentioned how he didn't want farewell.
His farewell. Why? I don't care what he.
I think it's kind of cheesy to have a farewell tour. I mean, if you're Brady, you don't need one. It doesn't really matter. He's done everything. So whenever you retire.
Kobe had a farewell tour, and that was special.
Well, Kobe was also coming to the end of his career. Tom Brady could be coming to the end of his career in 7 years. So we don't know when that farewell tour would be. If I was him, I'd hang it up, and I'd call it the end to probably the greatest single career of any sport, if not top 3. I mean,
crazy. All right, well, that'll just about wrap it up. A lot of exciting stuff. I mean, hopefully this championship weekend lives up to what the divisional round was last weekend. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. Let us know if you have any ideas for future podcasts, any questions you want us to answer. SportsBx, ThatFootballTopic. Enjoy the games tomorrow, and have a good night.